Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 90th episode of the HSBG Podcast. On one side, my favorite competitor in all of Hearthstone, always there to keep my ramping in check, best friend of this channel. I have a sign of his name over my head. Give it up for Shady Bunny! How you doing?
Wow, that is quite epic and not rehearsed at all. So caught off guard. Awesome, man. I'm great. Your sign was above my head, but it was out of the shot, so I'd have to go grab it. But I'd have it in a minute.
Disappointed.
How
I
how you
felt a
doing
little
today?
bad.
All right, let's see.
A couple of weeks ago, I felt a little bad that I did it for Gia and John, and I kind of left you out to dry. So I didn't do it there. But then next the next week was about the esports announcement. I was like, this is not the
Right.
time.
Oh yeah. Oh, don't worry.
This is not the time for this. But here, week after, perfect time to throw it out there. So hope you're doing great.
All right. Got your there we go. You're in the shot.
You are in the. I am in the shot. Feels good.
Damn.
It's all good. It's all. anyways, regardless, we do have some interesting things to talk about. Patch has come out since yesterday, I believe, or was it 2 days ago? Regardless, we always talk about the weekly overview. How was your week, Shady?
Fine. I think there was a lot of stagnation in terms of MMR, where it was just hovering around, which is pretty rare for me. I'm usually quite slow and steady, just like inching forward. So, but that's fine. I think it's partially the MMR not being that relevant, partially the meta about to shift. It's not like I wasn't trying to win, but I think I wasn't. Usually I pull out all the stops, right, and I'll watch other streamers. I'll take notes, and I'll be like, because especially at the start, sometimes it's fine, but sometimes it takes a while for me to get going. And I think this one, especially that shift from quests back to just triples, essentially as your value, need a little bit. But now that we've had the patch, I think that's plenty of motivation to get started and learn it a bit better. Overall, some stagnation where it really felt like I was trying to hit the cards and then I didn't hit the cards and then I didn't do well. And that's kind of the mark of you're not really understanding the meta. Yeah, if you're I think if you're really in a meta, even if it's lopsided, where it's like hit or die, you still have your little things you do when you miss, and it's like, okay, it's not disaster. But I've gotten a lot of like 6, 7, 8, and that's a rare result. For like I'm you know me, right? I'm in the middle. I get my good games when I get a good setup, but then I get my 5s, I get my 4s, and I get my 3s. That's unusual for me to get like a really bottom result. So that's for me the sign like I'm not getting something, right? But yeah, anyways, how was your week, Collins?
My week was great. Like not as descriptive as yours. As you should know, I've been meandering on Snap, just seeing how that's going. It's been going well, ish.
Just a little rank one on the side.
Yeah, apparently. I didn't believe it, but apparently I'm the highest rank in NA. So that's kind of cool.
How does this work? Is this based off the cubes you're gaining off people? You have the most cubes, or what's the rank?
I have the most cubes, in NA.
Sure. Okay. Is this like, do you do some kind of manipulation where you're in the lower collection level?
No, I don't. I thought about doing that, but I don't. I'm just with the big boys, and
I thought it was because like there's like is there pool 4 and 5 and stuff? Because I only knew about 3.
Yeah. Okay. There's pool 4 and 5, and I play against.
And you have those cards already?
No, I have one of them out of like.
Okay.
What is it? 15 or
something? So that's not a cutoff. It's like pool 3 and then you're with everyone.
Yeah, with everyone. Exactly.
Oh, okay. I thought it was like again like for pool 4 and pool 5, but Okay, that is really, really impressive, but I'm not
Apparently
surprised.
it is. Yeah. I was shocked as well when I noticed that was the case. So yeah, that's been going fine, I would say. So
Yeah.
I've been
No, you're
in.
pretty good at games, Collins. You're pretty good at games.
Thank you, Shade. I appreciate it. They don't even know, all the people that watch me at Snap, they're like, "Who is this guy?" Like, just a random player. I'm like, they don't even know.
Yeah, I mean, the funniest thing is like you probably assume like the rank one is dedicated all the
Yeah,
time. And
he's
after
yeah, right. Oh,
yeah,
how long you been playing? I'm just start go release, Yeah, like
yeah,
I've been playing on the side, really.
mainly on the toilet, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Anyways,
And yeah, anyways, that's been my week in particular. But yeah, it's definitely
yeah.
been
But
cool.
have you played some BGs?
Yes, I played yesterday.
Okay. Okay.
For the new patch and stuff like that. And I play a little bit. But yeah, it's definitely less than you or anything like that, right? 'Cause, you play.
Didn't miss that much with the previous patch, at least from
Yeah,
my experience.
yeah. I mean, it's kind of just the issue with uh the way the tournament setup is structured,
Yeah.
right? Like this first month is too important, and I really didn't think I could contest this first month, so it kind of just knocks out the whole. Like, do I have to grind for like the rest of the weeks, right? Like,
Mm.
since you're kind of already out, like by 2 weeks in, it's like kind of rough. So there was no
Yeah.
pressure for me to grind it, basically. But I could have if I wanted to, but I didn't want to. Um,
Oh, fair, fair.
anyways, let's move on to some of the topics we do have today. One thing I did want to talk about was the creator program, right? So that got announced, I believe yesterday, right? So it's definitely something cool and something to shoot for if you are in the scene of Hearthstone and you're not like already in touch with the developer and stuff like that. Like there's now an official way to become in touch with the developers, and I think that's pretty cool. Um, Definitely helpful for a lot of like new and up and coming streamers. A lot of the like already established people and stuff like that, they do already have access, right? Like like it's not like before this they were talking to nobody, right? Like they are talking to people and stuff like that. But it's cool if you weren't there or something and you wanted to find a way to get in there. This is definitely a streamlined path. And I would say like the requirements are a little bit strict, but even if you don't like fit the exact criterias or for stuff like that, like you can still apply, right? Like Akalia said that, like even if you don't fit all these requirements for like being a streamer or a YouTuber or podcast or whatever, like you can still apply, and as long as they find your presence and your criteria engaging and stuff like that, that you might still get accepted. So I definitely think it's something to look at and work towards if you do want to be a Hearthstone content creator and things like that. Any thoughts? I probably covered everything for this one, but
I think it's just a boost, right? It's just a bonus. So
um,
no real reason not to. And like you mentioned, a lot of the time, and this is with many things where you might not fit exactly all the criteria, but it doesn't hurt to try because you might over deliver maybe in some other
mm,
category, right?
yeah,
That compensates. And if not, it's just stick with it, right? Because you see a lot of the requirements, a lot of it is consistency. We're just like have to keep
yeah.
going, and
They
then
do
you'll
really want consistency. Like it's something
mhm.
they value for sure. So yeah,
I
definitely.
think that's almost with anything, right? Like if you're
How
gonna
dare
hire
you be
someone,
inconsistent as a human
well, I
being?
mean, if you're gonna hire someone, you also want them to be
Do
consistent,
I
right?
have to show up every day, guys? Come
Like,
on. Like the
this is
days
like
I
an
show up
every
are really
gamer.
good. Come on. No, you don't like that.
See, the thing is, like, you are good enough that you might be getting away with that, right? And you probably do get away with that in areas in your life. But then imagine if there was like full, try hard mode. Yeah.
Uh,
Okay.
some. I mean, I see what you're saying, but yeah, I mean, it's fair.
Yeah.
It's fair for sure. So definitely, if you are interested, take a look at it. Make sure you read the contract. that they have. Like you always want to be aware of what you're signing because it's a long one. It's like 15 pages, so that's the one like little tip of advice. Make sure you read that. But other than that, if you
That's
want
like
to,
the terms and service everybody reads every time they.
yeah, I know, no one reads it. I know, but
I
like
know.
read it.
You
Yeah.
should. You should,
I've
and you
taken a
should eat
look
your
at it.
vegetables, and you should exercise, and you should do all those things.
I know, like people,
No,
I
I hear you.
know.
I hear you. I mean, especially when it comes to like signing something, right? At least for me, I think as a kid, that was always the thing that was like drilled into, like don't just sign anything, right? Like, or you'd see that in a show or whatever. Some guy gets hustled because he put his name on something, and just like, oh, I'm not gonna do that. So yeah, obviously, if you're signing something, you should be reading that.
Yeah. I felt I have to say it. I can't.
No, of course. It's a good reminder.
Yeah,
Read the things you sign.
Read the things you signed, folks. All right, but mostly we will be talking about the patch notes and stuff like that. I don't really feel like we fully covered the 25.2 patch notes last week, right? Because we were kind of talking about the announcements. So feel free to mention that.
Got it in there,
we did, but like I feel like, well, obviously I'm just saying, like, if you want to reference that past
right, yeah, if there's anything, yeah, no worries.
Yeah, feels good. But overall, we do have the battlegrounds changes, and we can kind of go through them, right? So first of all, we do have some armor changes. I don't know if we talked about the armor changes in the previous patch, but we do have a couple having less armor. Anixia and Sneed is now armor tier 2. I think both of them make sense because they summon things, and at least the undead meta was very avenge abusable. So
yeah, this is the thing I think about when I see this nerf. Is like, you're nerfing these heroes, but you're also changing the environment. So, right, essentially, the goal of this patch in large is to make undead less powerful, to encourage other strategies, right? Give them a little bit of breathing room. So it's funny to say, like, hey, we want you to do a little less of the token stuff. At the same time, we're also going to make the token heroes that were really good in that meta, we're going to like make them worse preemptively. So it's like you're changing two things at the same time. And I get it, right? You can't have a patch every few days. But it always feels a bit weird where we're going to say, Onyxia and Sneed were really good in this meta, so we're going to nerf them. Also, we're going to change the meta. It's like that's sort of what it feels like. But yeah, anyways.
It becomes very easy to overshoot things when you do these multiple changes, and the changes compound on each other, right? Like if you're changing two different things but they don't relate, then it's fine. But if you're making avenge strategies harder or weaker, and then you're also nerfing the heroes that were doing better, right? Like you could make them become very, very bad, very, very inconsistent, and that's kind of the fear. I don't really care about these two heroes, and I actually don't like Sneed at all. So I could be down with Sneed 0 armor personally, here, but either way, it doesn't affect me too much, so maybe that's why I'm not complaining. But I do understand what you're saying.
I think it's a very small thing. Armor in general is not that important, right? Now quests are gone. Yeah. Right now, armor doesn't mean much. So these changes or whatever. Same with the heroes that get more armor. Pyramid gets more armor. Sylvanas gets more armor. Probably doesn't make me want to play a Sylvanas, and I'm happy to play Pyramid usually. So sure, I'll take a little bit of extra health on Pyramid, but it's hardly gonna sway me too much.
Right. I agree with that. All right, moving on to the card changes. So we do have Thorn Captain. Used to be a 4/1, now it's a 4/2, so you get a health buff. I mean, I've played with this card, when I stay on one sometimes, and I never keep it into my comp. It's just like a 4/3. Right.
You just have some like good turns where you triple, and then it's like, and then you're like, all right, back to being useless.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. When you triple, it's like an 8/16, and you're like, "Whoa, this is so good!" Like, what the? then the next
card.
Next turn, it's an 8/4, and you're just like, "Oh, right."
Oh boy. Yeah. So I think this doesn't change too much. It's just like now, if you would want the 4-2, which probably is a 4-3 if you're buying it,
Right.
you're like, okay, right, I'll take the 4-3 when it's just better than the other things.
Right.
But again, this doesn't change much.
Right. Eternal Night. So it loses one attack. I I I'm personally surprised this is the only thing it has that it got. I really thought it getting
So
two of them on turn 2 is still so stupid in my opinion.
I played a lot, and honestly, even the games where I got two of them, it's like it wasn't really insta win or any of that.
It's not insta win, but it's you can level for like
Yeah, even that, right? People just play. It's the card below. People just play Google the Feast, and it doesn't matter.
oh,
So the point was that there. I guess my point is that there was so much dumb shit happening that you're like, I have two Eternal Nights, and someone's like, I don't give a shit. So there was still a good amount of times where I was in trouble, even with like. I
okay.
think the only time that I truly felt on top of the world with this shit is if I also had I was Vol'jin, and I was just swapping them somewhere else, and then they get their stats back, right? Because it's an aura.
I will say I found 4 of them. And
Okay, yeah,
and
or that's so two is decent, right?
yeah,
I'm not
right,
gonna say here that you
right,
wouldn't want to buy two of them.
right.
So obviously four, that's twice as good as decent. That's
Yeah,
pretty good.
yeah. And it was so free. I was just like I just level. I did nothing. Just level to 6.
What was this? And the like just the first patch when Undead were just
No, that
released,
was
or
with this.
this patch?
Yeah.
See, I think now that would be even stronger, just because everything else has been toned down a bit.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, so like I get your point there. Where now I think if you get two of these, it's a bit better, because the crazier the meta is, the more you can just have a good start and be like, I can't believe this isn't good enough.
Right,
So, but yeah, I mean, the next card, Ghoul of the Feast, is a good example where there's so many times on my board that I look at someone and it's like, that's a great board, but they don't have Ghoul of the Feast. So here you go, take it. Or
right.
just whatever is like, oh, we're not afraid of them. They don't have a ghoul. And then I see someone with this shitty ass board and they have a
They have a
ghoul. I'm like,
goal.
oh my
Yeah.
god, they have a ghoul. So yeah, this card for me was
It's too
way,
good.
way more influential than Eternal
And I
Night, which is funny. Yeah, go ahead.
well, I think that makes sense, right? The card was
Yeah.
nuts, and I still think it's nuts, which is the problem, right? Like I don't think this fixes the discrepancy between someone with this on the board and someone with this not on the board.
Yeah.
It's still like you always win, like essentially.
I think the main thing this nerf accomplishes, it makes it just less of an end game thing.
Mm.
Because I had games in the, because for people who didn't play a lot in the undead meta, the meta was insanely fast.
Why is this an undead in the first place? Like I don't know.
Yeah. That's another thing. All right, but in a fast meta, scaling gets punished and tempo gets rewarded. So whenever jugglers are doing well, it's a fast meta.
Right.
Jugglers were doing real well this patch. We saw a lot of jugglers sneaking into the top 4 because first of all, it's instant power, and second of all, it's pretty good against tokens, right? So there were a lot of like low health and dead builds you could counter. But Ghoul of the Feast is another example of you just having nothing on your board, but you could just have a golden Ghoul of the Feast and then just like garbage, right? Like Ring Matron, Icky, Imp, High Main, and then you find yourself in second place, right? Because no one else got a comp together, and there's one like undead high roller that's killing everyone, and you're just doing all right with your golden Ghoul of the Feast. And I think that scenario does hurt a lot, that you go from 3 to 2, but you're not supposed to build an end game board around the 3 drop. So I think that's pretty fair that it doesn't do that anymore.
The Flector
Now,
would like a word with you.
yeah. But I think the Flecto is more like requires a support, whereas the Ghoul is just like, I am the support.
Yeah.
But it's true. The Flecto is, I mean, I say this all the time, right? It's broken. It's so good. But it's like broken, but in a way that kind of suits the game, where like, mech's needed, right? If mechs don't have the Flecto, they don't have anything. It's like, oh man, why would I ever pick mechs? But you mentioned something, and I think that's really important to focus on, is that while because we talk about this sometimes. Oh, you change a 1 into a 2, the thing is suddenly garbage or insane. We did change a 3 into a 2, and that's a big change. But you were overkilling so much in the early game
Yeah,
already
it
that it
didn't
really
matter.
doesn't.
Yeah.
Like if you have to attack, you win the early game. And the fact that it's not as dominant in the late game then doesn't really matter too much either, because this card is essentially just an enabler that allows you to level. If you
Yeah.
have this on your board, you're going to win fights. You can level. You have high tier cards before the other people, and you're in an advantageous position.
Yeah. My opponent's max had like 9 health, right? And then this thing has like 17 attack. And I'm just like, okay, now it's 11 attack, and I still, like, nothing has changed.
Even in the early game, sometimes you went up to like 30 or some shit, right? If you had like 2 Ikeyams or
Well, if you
stuff.
have
Like,
Rat Pack or something stupid, yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
yeah. And another thing you mentioned is that it buffs itself,
Mm,
which is really the mark of just a really good backline card,
mm.
where you have the dinosaur, which also does this.
The
But you
Croc.
have like a good example. Yeah, Croc as well. Well, Croc doesn't buff itself, right?
But you
But they can
usually
buff.
have something in the back for things like
Yeah, but you can compare that to like a light fang or so, or a grease spot, where you really when it's up to the light fang or the grease spot to do the fighting, you're like, oh crap,
You
we're in
remember
trouble.
when Greasebot had Divine Shield? Oh, it was amazing,
Yeah.
right? Like, that's
Then
basically Goal of the Feast there.
that's the difference.
Yeah,
Yeah. The grease spot then did damage, and then that's the same with the ghoul. Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah. Anyways, TLDR for me is this should have probably been Avenge 2, and then either stick with 3
3
attack or
attack,
do
Avenge
whatever.
2, yeah, maybe something like
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
because it's just it's like Bird Buddy vibes, but
And,
you don't
and
have to
and
be.
maybe it shouldn't be a type, right? Like, Bird Buddy is not a beast. Imagine if Bird Buddy buffed itself, right?
Yeah,
Like, you know what
I
I
think if
mean?
you turn it into Avenge 2, it might be alright if it's a type, but I'm not sure because it
Yeah,
is
I
a
see
lot
what you're
slower.
saying. Like, nerf the type or Avenge 2, like one of the two, initially,
Yeah,
and then see, right? Like, I just don't think this iteration is enough, if that makes sense.
no, I think there's almost consensus when, I talked about this on Twitter a little bit, and a lot of people were like, "Yeah, this kinda effectively does nothing." This
Mm,
nerf, it's like
yeah.
it's still gonna be a power level machine in the early game.
Uh,
So yeah, I hope that they'll be open to just saying like, okay, let's just hotfix because we missed the mark a little bit here.
mm,
Yeah,
that would be impressive, but I don't know. Can they change numbers in hotfixes?
I don't know. I mean, I'd be down for removal. I think most people
I
they could
guess
take it out for a
removal
while.
wouldn't be the end of the world, huh?
Because the issue with this is you want to create as good of an environment as possible where people just have a chance.
To do
Right, and
things,
then
yeah.
exactly, like, and it's like Lich Bazil type vibes where, "Oh, I fought Lich. Oh, I fought someone with a ghoul." We want to create, at least I would want to create as little instances as possible where people in the early game feel like they're hopelessly behind because they fought X opponent.
Mm,
And there's a really good chance. So you're conditioned a little bit more to it if you're playing in the undead meta to play around ghoul, which is you just have a bunch of stuff on your board
right,
so that your stuff can trade with their stuff because they usually have low health.
right.
But there are people that will invest into a Wrathweaver, for instance, and
Oh
then
yeah,
they're
that is useless.
yeah, their 18 health Wrathweaver gets one shot by a fucking bronze ward, and you're just sitting there like, I'm supposed to win the early game with my massive minion, but I'm
I
taking 15.
I spent 10 health on this.
Exactly.
Oh man.
It's that kind of board that really suffers, and you can't tell people like, well, no minions over 6 health. It's too dangerous to invest. It's like keep everything low health, spread it out, spread it out, spread it out. Just because your opponent might have a ghoul, but that's kind of the strategy early on. You don't really want to invest too much into one minion. So yeah, it just creates this nasty environment where you can be very far ahead or behind very early on in the game, and that's just not a great feeling.
I want to say justice for Wrathweaver need to buff. You've revived. Like, I'm thinking, when's the last time I played that card?
I
Definitely.
definitely played it a bit in the quest metas. But
You
that's
you
because I'm yeah, good.
I was gonna say you run Vol'jin Evil Twin, that's why.
I am a Vol'jin main. That is true. I play a crap ton of Vol'jin, and Vol'jin always has a use for Wrathweaver. But it's more like the way how you just look at it as a pure tempo tool. But I think it is quite specific to double Weaver early, right? It's not like you wouldn't play a single Weaver. It's like you get those double Weaver shops in the quest meta, and that would allow you to essentially focus on your quest while also winning the fight. Because like you play like 2 demons, and a lot of people are kind of like cycling cards or whatever to complete their quest, so you win with
What
only
if you
2
only
demons.
take 1 per 2 demons? 1 damage per 2 demons.
Right. I mean, I'd be down for that kind of stuff where if you want to do it like half a health point, right?
No,
Because
like there'd be like a threshold,
a
right? Like
counter,
a
right?
counter,
Yeah.
yeah. If you hit the
So
second
would you take it on the first or the second hit?
the second hit, the second. Oh, I
So the
guess you.
first
Oh, I see what you're saying. Huh?
demons
That's
on the
kind of
house.
strong. Okay, the first
Yeah.
hit. You're right. Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
The
So it's
first
like
hit.
you take damage and then the next demon's on the house.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, stuff like that. That could be cool. That because it does feel really bad spending your health on Wrathroot. And in this kind of environment,
And
it's
you
not a
lose. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I can't.
You're
I'm
not
too
supposed to be
mad.
able to yeah. You're not supposed to be able to lose with a Wrathweaver
Yeah.
start. And in this meta, you can absolutely lose. So don't play Wrathweaver in this meta, guys. Yeah.
That was a whole topic in itself. The School of the Feast card. I like it.
Yeah, but I think this is by far the most
Important
impactful.
change. Okay.
Yeah, and I think this is the only one where I disagree with, really, where I say they missed the mark.
Okay.
The rest seems pretty good.
Perfect roll. 2 health. 2 health.
Yep.
So now it's a SI Toxfin. That's what I think about. That's
All right, it's 2/6. Yep. That's the Toxfin.
seems good
Or
to me. I think.
7,
Yeah.
7, yeah.
Yeah. I think
It's nice. I mean, it died to a bomb before, right? That's kind of stupid.
Kind of
So,
stupid. Yeah.
so
I'm down
I'm,
with this.
yep.
Rip Snarl Captain. Oh, this is the one where I may have a problem with this, because when so people don't play this card, and I understand that, right? But when people do actually play this card, it's so toxic because when you win hard. You like your minions don't die, and you can drain tank people, right? Like especially if you have the 3/6, but they removed the 3/6. But like before, like theoretically, right? You have the Yoho. Let's just pretend it's still in. They attack you with a minion. Your Yoho kills something, or 1/1 and grows. And then they attack again. The Yoho attacks and grows. And then they attack you. Like you can't get through this Yoho because it just keeps growing, right? Like you're gonna, especially if you have 2 Rip Snarls. It's like you can't kill anything. You're always taking max damage. So that's kind of my issue with buffing this card, is that even though it's like not being played, when it is played and is played well, you always deal max damage, right? Everything lives, with a little bit of health, and it's hard for you to kill things, and this thing's in the back, so you're taking the 4 or 8 damage on top of the your tavern tier, so it's very easy to hit the cap on the max or go over that. So that's my one problem with a buff like this. I think you're creating the scenario where people are just gonna. You can't counterplay this, right? If people get 2 of them, you can't counterplay this, and that's my
I think what we're seeing here is a push for mid-range pirate to be a thing. This was also a change to Vanessa,
right?
And I agree with you in that Rip Snarl was already really good at doing what it did. If you have a pirate board, this is a great card to put on your board in the mid game.
Yeah,
that's what it did. But is giving it +3/+3 suddenly going to be like, you're going to be on my board,
the whole
turn
game,
14?
Yeah.
Probably not. So I agree in that this change, it feels a bit weird because you're just punishing the person that fights Patches harder.
Patches is like, yes, sir, I want these.
hit me up with that Rip style, because I agree, right? The times where you actually have the pirate board are fairly few, because it's just rare. It's like you went like 3-on-3 and you open 2 salties or something, and then you go 4 and you hit this thing. You're like, okay, whatever. But the amount of times where you actually fit this thing on your board, it's pretty rare. But then when it does happen, you just punish the
So
opponent even
strong,
harder.
yeah.
Because they were probably already winning if Rip Snarl was good on their board.
Yeah,
So
that's
now
true.
they're just making sure you're taking damage cap. And it's the same thing with Vanessa. Vanessa went from a 1/2 to a 2/2. We will cover it later. That just makes the mid game pirates stronger, but I don't see it suddenly being a thing where you'll keep pirates on your board, especially with the Eliza nerf where Khadgar isn't in anymore, right? So you won't really be able to play, you won't be able to transition into that because you
Into
could
an
say
end
all
game
with mid-range
composition,
pirates.
yeah.
Yeah, so now it's essentially all these pirates are nice, but do I hit a Hogger? Yes or no? If I don't hit a Hogger, then what's the point?
Yeah.
I'm wasting my time here with these pirates. Because the Vanessa, because the Rip Snarl isn't permanent buffs, so that falls behind like crazy. And the Vanessa scaling just
You know what I'm thinking? They should add
yeah,
a pirate that only works for Scallywag, like as a Khadgar for Scallywag. Like I trigger Scallywag's extra, so you can still play the cop, but only use that card for that one specific unit.
that's such a waste of triples and such a waste of shop slot.
Like maybe tack it on to a low played pirate or something. Like
You can only roll it when you have Scallywag on your board.
well, what if you, instead of buffing it to +3/+3, you put that effect on this Rip Snarl? So hey, Rip Snarl Scallywag is now a combo, and then you can also play the full Exodia pirate if you want to do that as well. Yeah. I as you can tell, I miss that composition. I miss it. But yeah, that would be interesting. I'd be like, oh wow, Rip Snarl, it's now my new favorite, pirate. Like, ooh, like
Rip
Hogger,
Snarl looking
Hogger.
good. Yeah.
You trigger my Scallywags in extra time. Literally, that's the only extra ability. I'm like, damn.
It does feel I guess something that will happen, right, is people will have this on their board and then triple into Greta and make this +6/+6 which is gonna be
That's
such
true.
nasty
That's
tempo,
true.
right? Triple into Greta and just rip Snarl for a turn. So yeah, I mean, in the end, right, the Blizzard philosophy is, are you playing this stuff? No, we'll make it stronger. And then if you're not going to play it, I'll make it even stronger. And it was just like, there's going to be a point where you're going to want to play it, right? So we'll see whether the break point has been reached for some more mid-range pirates.
If it was +4/+4, I'd probably be playing it already.
I mean, it's so dumb.
It's so dumb,
point,
right? Yeah, it's I mean, like I bet you could start forcing it. Like it'd be that good. Like let's just.
No. I mean, we'll see. I'll definitely pick this up at some point because I tend to have Peggy, right, in a more balanced meta. So I'll try that.
Speaking of Peggy.
Yes.
Master of Realities. Now, you can talk about this initially because I have to use this really quick. And, but I know exactly what you're going to say. So
yeah, Collins knows my playbook, right, very well. So indeed, when Master of Realities is announced as a 4-drop, this just absolutely reminds me of Peggy because the 3-card combo that already existed but was harder to do because one card was on tier 5, mainly Master of Realities, is you have a Peggy, you have a Ball of Minions, and you have a Master of Realities. So every time you buy a card, the Ball of Minions is a pirate, so it gets triggered for the Peggy buff, but it's also an elemental, so it buffs your Master of Realities. So just imagine someone that stays on tier 4 with 0 triples, has 2 Master of Realities, 2 Peggies, and a Ball of Minions. You cycle 1 Scout, and you're just like, boom, the board just explodes with stats. So yeah, this is definitely something that benefits tier 4 warriors, I guess, where you just bunker down and buff up. And then Magma Lock was moved to tier 5, which I think is the obvious reply to this. You can't have both Masters of Realities and Magma Lock on 4 because then essentially you wouldn't have to roll Peggy and a Ball of Minions. Magma Lock is like a Peggy and a Ball of Minions combined. Sort of course. Peggy is still very nice with blood gems and cards to the hand, but for the most part, Magma Lock is absolutely busted with this. So yeah, this definitely opens up some more mid-range tier 4 strategies where you can try to then triple into the things that make it even stronger. So Bran is also nice. Obviously, Magma Lock is the main one. Yeah, I don't hate this. We're gonna move on to the next one here. So
We're
a
moving
new
on.
bracket.
Whoa, whoa,
We
whoa,
are.
whoa. No. I want to talk about Master Realities.
You missed your window, Collins. I'm sorry. I filled it all the time with fit.
Oh,
No, it's
I
cool.
see
Go ahead.
why. You know what my response? Okay, well,
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Go for it.
I actually think that this is problematic of a change. I think they're maybe undervaluing how good Master Realities can be, right? Especially with Peggy's and Ball of Minions.
Mhm.
They did move Magma Lock, right? So like that
Yeah.
scared me initially when I was reading it down the
Yeah.
list, right? I
You,
was like, "What?
you
You
can't,
can't
like,
do this! Like
you can't do that. That's illegal.
but then they at least moved Magma Lock up, but you can like it doesn't mean you can't get Magma Lock, right? So you add Magma Lock on this.
Well, true, but that's the same as it is now, though, right?
Yeah, for sure,
Like
for
you
sure.
can get, and it's obviously way better to get the Magma Lock earlier, right?
First, I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
but yeah,
Yeah, but still, like, if you know you're playing Master Realities, you can get the synergy for that, and then the Magma Lock just if
slides right in.
exponentially
Right?
makes it a lot better. So,
Yeah.
and it also means now you don't have to like level for this card, right? You can stay on 4. You can do things with like Party Elemental. You can do things with Peggy. If you have Ball, right, you open up the other synergies with the Dragon. What's the 2/5? And you've done this. You know what I'm talking about. So
Yeah. Whelp Smuggler.
yeah,
It
well,
was,
Smuggler, yeah.
but that was really a splitting image, kind of like the evil twin.
Yeah.
1 giga unit.
So I'm apprehensive of like whether this will be balanced at all. I'm wondering like after the meta settles and like things are more in a balanced state. Like I wonder like how good will Master Realities be in the meta. So
Well, I will say that it was such an easy Leroy/Queen target
yes,
before.
yes, but right now in undead meta, people aren't really like focusing on that, right? So you can kind of like you might be able to sneak it in, right, where people aren't
Yeah.
aware. The question is like in the future, like how does it play? But also like you can also play you can have these big guys and then you play your own your Leroy Mantis and then deal with that too.
For sure.
So
And the counter is you taunt your whole board and you pray, but that does require a lot of resources.
mm,
It's a lot of gold to
yeah,
get a sparring partner one by one.
yeah. So I'm just not too sure that this is a great change or like healthy, like long term. Like right now in
Mm.
undead meta, maybe it doesn't matter as much because people aren't focusing. But I think like what if the meta is healthier and more compositions are viable, this might be like a really dominating way to play.
So would you feel the same if Magmalock weren't a card?
No, I would feel more okay with this change if Magma Lock
Yeah.
wasn't a card. But the fact that Magma Lock like every card you play, like, and it just synergizes very easily.
Mhm.
It just kind of turns this into like a a power spike, as well as like the magma lock already is also insane, and then you can get 2 of these on top of it. So yeah, it's a scary one. I do agree that the without magma lock, I'd feel more okay about this change, but with the magma lock in, it's a little scary.
We'll take a small break here to welcome the RDU raid. Hey,
Hey,
everyone.
hey, thank you for the raid. Much appreciated. We're going over the patch somewhat. I'm talking about how Master Reality is a horrible card and should be getting nerfed in the next patch. Isn't that right, Shady? No? You don't agree?
Well, I think that you're taking it out on the wrong card. I think you should be taking it out on Magmalock because
We're getting there. We're gonna get
yeah.
there.
Okay, I'll wait. I'll savor it. That's
Yeah.
fair.
But yeah, definitely I'm a little concerned about this one at the moment.
Absolutely. There's potential. I would say there's 2 main heroes that really abuse this card, and it's Millhouse and Gallywix because
Mm-hmm.
they're just so insanely good at playing cards, and that both benefits that Peggy engine and the Magmalock. So I think for most other heroes, it's fine where
Probably
you
fine.
create a big
Mhm.
guy. But yeah, With Millhouse, it's like, hey, it's 300, 300.
Yeah.
Like it's just huge.
Yeah.
And so anyway, so we can move on. It's just something we're gonna have to find out how the meta evolves and how easy you can counter it with Leroy.
Yep. Next up, we have a Nubarak. So used to be tier 5, 5 attack. Your undeads have 2 attack for the rest of the game wherever they are. Now, wait for a chat. It's a tier 4 attack, but now your undeads have 1 attack for the rest of the game. So it went from 2 attack to 1 attack. Job's done. We've solved undead. It's over. They can't recover from this. What do you think?
I think overall it's a good change for sure. So right now you can get a Nubarak more consistently and earlier, but it's only half the scaling.
Right.
So I think what this creates is an environment where more people have a chance at playing that composition, and it's within reason, where you don't just create tokens that cannot be tanked, because that's not really the point of tokens. The point of tokens is I'm going to deal with poison, I'm going to deal with shields, right? I'm going to deal with low health minions. That's the point of tokens. The point of tokens isn't 300 health, no problem. My guy is going to two-shot that. Right? That's a token is not supposed to look at a 300 health minion and be like, no problem, boss. Like that is not a thing that should be possible. But with Old Anubarak, that was very possible, where you would just get it early, and then you get a Titus, and then you get a soul splitter, and you would just have, because there is this natural rock paper scissors game going on, where you have stats that are weak to poison, and then poison is weak to tokens, and then tokens is weak to stats. So
Copium.
The token player,
Copium.
copium, right? That was not true in the last meta. Last meta is tokens beat everything.
They have
and
a bazooka.
Everything is. It's like tokens always win, right? No more rock paper scissors. It's just like rock paper scissors, token always win. So I like this, because this makes it healthier, where it's easier to get the Anubarak, and you can build a more reasonable board that will still do the job of tokens, but you don't really reward the one high roller that gets the Anubarak early, because it was a lot harder to get here. Well, there's actually a comment in chat about this, which is a perfect example.
Am I going to have to start reading chat now? Oh my
God. No. It's just saying like, everything is weak to Leroy and Queen. And that's the great example is tokens absolutely destroy Leroy Queen boards, where, like one gas coiler can kill like 2 Leroys and maybe half a Queen or a whole Queen. So it's a great example how tokens really have that place where they counter this low health poison bullshit, right? Like you can remember those boards where you just have like a bunch of Tox Fins on Cold Light Sears and everything is like 8 health, and you destroy someone that's playing whatever, right? Quillbore.
Yeah.
And then, one Reborn Coiler kills 4 minions.
Yeah.
So that's a good dynamic, right? You want to have a counter to a counter to a counter. But yeah, when the tokens get so powerful, suddenly they defeat their counter, and that's not okay. So I think it's a great change. I don't think we want to have this, millions attack. Well, I'm over exaggerating, but 50 damage on the token was extremely achievable with Old Anubarak. And I think that we definitely, we want to step away from that, where it's not so easy to just make 50 damage on your tokens.
So I was memeing the change, like 2 to attack, jobs done. But I actually think it did help, right? Like I do agree with you in that you kind of need Titus now. Like it's almost a requirement if you want to be getting to the summons of old, where you're getting like 50 attack summons, where you kind of need the Titus super early. And if you really want the nuts, you also need the Soul Splitter, and then you also need the Soul Splitter to hit the Anubarak, right? So that either means you're not running a ton of non-reborns, or you have enough Soul Splitters, or you have enough Anubaraks, right? Because you could have 2, where it scales like consistently to the numbers of old, and that's a lot more pieces than like just needing a Nubarak Soul Splitter or something like it used to be that if you had the Nubarak, you could get the other pieces pretty easily and consistently. Now you can get the Nubarak pretty easily, but the other pieces are more like of a requirement, or like they're harder to accomplish or to put in without feeling the pressure of like, oh,
Yeah,
I don't scale fast enough.
you'll have a humble comp if you don't,
Mm.
instantly get the Titus and the
Yeah.
Soul Splitter and
Yeah,
stuff.
And I think that's good. That's a good solution. So it ended up being like, okay, I was a little worried that even one attack would not be enough, but the pace of the game kind of prevents that. I would say like people scale fast enough that
Cut
it's
it in
fine.
half is pretty
Yeah.
brutal.
Yeah.
So
But it was too good before, so I think cut it in half is fair.
yeah, of course. I think it's justified. Like I said, I also like that they lowered it a tier. I think if you keep it at 5, you kind of kill it off
Kind
the
of kill it,
archetype. So I think right now it's an archetype. I think you can play it like in Nubarak tokens. That's still fine. Like if you get 2 Nubaraks early, like that's totally fine. Just run with that.
Right.
You can play that. That's not a problem.
Yeah, do agree with that. So ended up being fine with the change. I thought when I read it, I was like, oh, this might not be enough. But playing with it is a different beast, and like you have to compete with everything else. That's the problem, right? So a change like this is very impactful.
Well, put it this way: you're not buying this on tier 6 most of the time.
No, it's
Whereas
too late. Yeah, it's too late.
Yeah, hold the Nubarak, you'd still buy on tier 6 a lot of the time.
Yeah. Magma Lock. Next up, so we talked about this a little bit earlier. It used to be a Tavern tier 4 +1/+1 or 1/1/1. Now it's a Tavern tier 5. It's a 3/3. So it just got plus. It got 2/2 in free stat shading. That's crazy.
That's bullshit. This card was already strong, and now they're buffing it.
Now they're buffing it. How dare they buff this card? It's insanity. I mean, this card is nuts. This card
this was. It is funny because the master change is up first.
Right.
So you're like, this is
not okay. Yeah. You see this, you're like, how can they do this? Magma Lock
just gonna go on 4 now and hit Magma Lock and Master. But yeah, it's like, oh, okay, this is a 5 now. Okay, whatever. It's fine. It's I think this card still just it's something you gotta watch out for. I think if you're a balancer, if you're a developer, because the potential for abuse is so high where you're playing Milhouse or Galley, or just anyone that's having a great game, right? You can also use Seafood Chef on this to just insta golden it, which absolutely
why is Seafood
brings
Chef
it to the
still
next
in the
level.
game? I have to every time I have to ask, like, why is it in the game? Like, it doesn't make sense to me. Card is too nutty. Like, it does too many things for any comp that can run it. I just don't understand that. And it gives you free tier 6 rerolls. I just like, I don't see it. I don't see the reason why it's still alive.
It really rewards the person that can kind of push that snowball to 6. Yeah, because Seafood Chef, back when Amalgadon was a card, it was just the ultimate snowball thing. But yeah, anyways, we'll see. I mean, as stupid as a lot of Magma Lock boards were, just because of how strong the Nubarak token buffing was, you would very often be able to kill off the big ass Magma Lock with your tokens.
Yeah.
which is even more stupid. Right? It's like, I don't know what's more stupid, the fact that I can make this thing or the fact that you can kill this thing.
I want to throw something out that might be controversial, chat. Magma Lock, best card in the set. What do you think about that?
I think if we're taking all factors into account, I'd still say it's cool.
It's just because how Ghoul of the Feast, dude. That's a good one. Okay, I thought you were gonna go Blanchy on me.
Well, the meta was actually pretty slow at the start because people were figuring it out. Right. So like half my games were Theodore Blanchy and I was just winning. Right. But then everybody sped up and I was like, I can't play Theo anymore. I'm dying. So yeah, Blanchy lost a lot of value for me because I couldn't buff it anymore. Now, I think if you're just looking at like win rates and stuff, I think it's like cool. Which is like the boring answer. But it's
you know what? That might be correct. You're damn. I wanted to do something nice. Yeah, that's fair.
But I think that's the only card we both just very, very solidly agreed on as like this didn't get nerfed enough.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that you say, "Oh, this is probably the strongest card." Yeah.
Fair enough. But I think Magma Lock is very good, very strong, regardless, and definitely can be a win condition in his own. If you get 2 of them, or golden them, or play Seafood, or it just becomes.
This I would say this depends a little bit on how common poison is in the meta.
Right.
If
Right
you're,
now, poison.
yeah,
I mean, is like wasn't as
exactly.
common, but maybe as it it grows. The thing is, like the poison are just hitting your they're just hitting your master realities, right? Like,
Well, I mean, if we think back on like only like 1 or 2 metas ago, it's extremely common for there to be 5 or 6
5.
poison
You think they're gonna have 5 or 6
with
poisons?
no, yeah, 5 poisons because there's also a golden selfless and a baron. You got to make some space for that. So yeah, versus that board, Magmalock is completely useless, and you'd much rather have like a Cyclone that already has shield or a Cleave elemental. So that's why I said where if people are running poison a lot and there's easy access to poison, this card loses a lot
A
of its
lot of
punch.
value, yeah.
But it still carries your mid game hard, where you're just because in the mid game people don't have it ready yet, and then you just value trade and you win. So yeah, I mean, agree, it's a very strong card, but I think it's also going to be meta dependent. And in a meta where tokens are super prevalent, like right now with Undead, it's hard. Like you don't really want to put a puffer quill on your board, for instance, because you're like, well, this is going to die to like a Hand of the Forsaken token or whatever it's called. That's not a good trade. So, but yeah, whatever. We can move on, but just to say that it's pretty meta dependent for me.
That's fair. That's fair. All right, I'm down for that. Next up, we have Soul Splitter. So Soul Splitter used to be a Tower Tier 4 attack, 2 health. Now it's Tower Tier 5, and it got an extra attack, but that doesn't really matter. It's Tower Tier 5 now. So I think this was also necessary change. This card is too good. They didn't remove the reborn tag, which was what I was suggesting, but I think this is okay. Like you don't. It's now as uncommon enough that it's kind of okay. Where before, on Tower Tier 4, you could get it so often. So I'm not too sad about this particular change.
I agree with this. There's also a change coming up right at the end where this definitely affects Soul Splitter and how valuable Soul Splitter is. So
yeah, I know what you're talking about. Okay.
Yeah, exactly, right. So we'll cover that. But it's I think it's a good change. Yeah. It was too easy, as you said. Like you triple into an Anubarak, like you wouldn't be able to put both Anubarak and Soul Splitter on tier 4. That'd be really dumb because then you kind of unnerf Anubarak.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
It's like, oh, you basically spawn with Reborn. So yeah. I like this because it's still. I think if you make this card non-reborn, suddenly it's
not that great, right?
It's like, do you even want to play it at that point?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Right. Like then I'd rather just play actual reborns,
Yeah,
but
that's
yeah,
fair.
anyways,
Especially with some of the changes.
Yeah.
All right. Next up, we do have the Pirates Love. Vanessa Van Cleef is getting an extra health every time it attacks. So used to be whenever it attacks, you get +2/+1. Now you get +2/+2. So that's extra health. That's big. You know what we say about health? It's big.
It's good.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'm playing this now. You know what I mean? Like, I might run it for a turn and then sell it again. So
I don't. So this is exactly the same as a Rips now.
Right,
I don't think this is going to change when I play Vanessa. It's just going to make it better when I play it.
Yeah.
So I don't think this is going to achieve. I'm assuming that their goal is to push mid-range pirates a bit.
Patches is eating good tonight, or
Patches is loving this.
Yeah.
If you just happen to have a board full of pirates, Vanessa is amazing.
I will say, you give this Wind Fury, kind of good. You give this thing Wind Fury, so maybe a Naga Van Cleef, or you're playing Alakir, I guess it would also be, because then you get Divine Shield. Yeah. It's hard, right? It's hard. I know. How do you get that?
You have to keep in mind, though, like how long is that good? It's great in the mid game, but then all of a sudden you move towards the late game. It's like, do you really want to dedicate a board slot to Vanessa?
I'm basically getting what's that 6-drop? The taunt one? I'm basically getting that effect every turn. That's
the fort.
Yeah, the fort. I'm basically getting a fort buff every turn. That's kind of good.
Yeah, but then you have to run other pirates as well.
But pirates are amazing. The pirate with Divine Shield, the pirate with Cleave.
The Cleave pirate, the pirate with Divine, the poison pirate. Those guys are awesome. I play them all the time.
It's so fun.
Yeah.
But yeah,
This is the issue, right?
right.
Sorry, you finished.
No, that's no. You're go for it. That's completely my
All
point.
right. My point here is that it's good, but at some point you start selling your pirates because it just makes sense.
Right.
Because no matter how nice it is to have the Vanessa and the Ripsnarl on the board, at some point you're gonna want to have either Hogger and you move into Peggy and Salty or whatever, or you didn't hit Hogger and then you're gonna either play Theodore or you're gonna play a dinosaur with some tokens because you're dying, or you're going to have a Bran and like ball of minions and some buffs or whatever. But the pirate buffing is just not going to keep up with more conventional scaling. Now, again, I think if you have Glow Scale and the Wind Fury guy, but then you think about that compared to what a Cleave does, it's like, my Vanessa is scaling. It's like, my Cleave would have killed half their board already by now, whereas the Vanessa removed the Divine Shield and then hit their taunt. So, yeah, it's just a pretty big difference. I just don't see it being enough to make it a comp. I guess that's the short version.
Yeah, you do bring. There's no payoff for mid game pirates. Essentially, is what we're saying. Where some comps where they have mid game, there is a payoff in like Cleave or Divine Shield. Like Deflecto mid game, right? You got the shield, and then the shield can reset and things like that. Or if you're playing like what's another like Juggler mid game, right? That you're dealing a lot of damage and you're messing with their composition and what they can play, right? So there's not really a payoff here. There's no like Divine Shield you that you can abuse, or the payoff is like, I hope I kill you fast enough like before you get to do anything.
Well, I will put it here that I think if you get this early enough and you have it on a board of pirates, it's
good.
really strong.
It's really good, yeah.
You just end up selling it. Like I actually, one of the most painful examples of this is I was playing Toki, and I think through some freak accident, I had like 2 Vanessas by, I don't know, like turn 5 or something involving a Faces where I evolved Vanessa, and then either I evolved another Vanessa or I did something where I like leveled fast and rolled. But I had like just I think I had 4 minions on my board. Yeah. I think I had 4 minions on my board, double Vanessa, double Faces. And that's about as early as you could possibly get 2 Vanessas, right? So that was obviously insanely good. But yeah, several turns later, it was like, I guess I sell you for a Soul Splitter now. It's just really sad because it was just not an archetype on its own that can provide the win condition. So, but yeah, great tempo card, and that's another thing where not every card needs to be a card that has to make it to the last board. I think it's perfectly fine to have cards that you transition out of.
What if? Hear me out. What if they're Tavern Tier 5? What do you think about that? maybe they should be good enough to keep. No, okay.
Wait, you said Tavern Tier 5.
What if they're Tavern Tier 5? Yeah, I feel like if you're a Tavern Tier 5, Tavern Tier 6, you should be able to keep them. Like maybe.
Right, you mean like any card that's a 5-star or a 6-star?
Like, and as like a key card for a comp, like it's kind of sad that you can't keep.
You have stuff like Mecha Jiraxis, right?
Mecha Jiraxis, you can keep.
That's a core card. Yeah, that's
come on, it's Mega Jiraxis. Of course.
Look at that body. That 315 body.
It's so big. He's so tall. I mean, come on. What do you think?
All right. Anyways, enough about Vanessa. I think it's not a huge thing for the meta, I'd say.
Yeah. Moving on, we've got Cyborg Drake. So it used to be 2 attack, 8 health, Divine Shield. Your Divine Shield minions have 8 attack. Now it gets 2 more health, so it's 2 attack, 10 health. Divine Shield, but your Divine Shield minions only have 8 attack instead of 10, so a little bit of a nerf, but I don't know if it's like, I don't think I think it's still really good. You know what I mean? Like, you could argue this is a buff. You really could. Like, 10 attack, like 10 attacks is like too much. So 8 attack is like just as good, and then you get 2 more health. That's way better.
No,
obviously it's not.
AoE,
right?
It's
not.
Yeah,
but you could argue it.
You could argue it's a buff for the turn it comes down.
Fine.
If it's the only Divine Shield.
Yeah. Fine.
But no, I hear you. I think we both think very similarly about this card. Whereas like this card it's just a victim of the meta
Yeah, it
where
will end up being a problem if the meta is healthy.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The moment it's not tokens everywhere,
Yeah.
suddenly it's like, oh, divine shields are pretty good again.
Yeah.
People have just regular minions I can trade into. Let me just, juice up because you have two of these guys on the board, plus 16 attack to every divine shield.
Yeah.
That's like, excuse me, when you have this good setup where you're either playing your own dark gaze, or you're playing Theodore, or you're just ready to start scaling, and then you hit someone with ground shaker and you're just like, oh no, and he kills you because it's too strong. That's this, right? But then ground shaker for divine shields. So it's so annoying where you just have a regular board and you're about to get huge, but you take 15 because their minions are insane. And then that's kind of the vibe you get with this card.
I don't like cards that are tanky also being high tavern tier. Like I don't know about that. This has nothing really to do with Cyborg Drake, but like I don't like when my card is strong, and how it's strong, it doesn't die because there's shield or whatever. But then it's also a tier 6 minion, so if I barely beat you, I'm dealing 12. You know what I mean? Like, because
yeah. What's another card like that? I mean, there's obviously Coiler, which is really dumb, where it pops. What's another card that just survives? I guess Sister kind of survives.
Sister survives. What's the other Divine Shield mech that I hate? Meccano. Yeah, Meccano, whatever. Holy Macro. That whatever Mecro. That card.
Macro.
Yeah. That card. It cheeses you and then it hits you for 15. I mean, stop it, dude. He's already dead.
That is so true. And I mean, this is a little. It's on topic, but that's why when you see someone that went 3-on-3, because sometimes you have to choose when you're gonna sandbag around.
Right.
And like, let's say the 7 gold round, that's a really bad round to sandbag versus someone who went 3-on-3, because then you lose. It's like 3 drop. Their face is 3 stars as well.
Yeah.
So you just take so much damage. So yeah, that's just part of the game where you have to see who you can lose to. And yeah, when you have cards like Cyborg Drake or Sister, that if you lose to that person, you're taking a lot of damage. So yeah, kind of random. Yeah, I guess.
They have 1,000 attack health Battle Master, and I can't beat it. Oh well, you're 15.
That's really annoying. Or even worse, when the Battle Master goes down to 1 health.
1 health. Dude, get me out. Get me out, dude. I've had that happen.
Those are the worst fights. So you just sit there being like, I guess I just take 1/4 of my life total on this.
We're going off to, but like, especially when it's like a 50-50 hit. Like, okay, either go left and I take 6 damage, or go right and I'm taking 13 or something, or worse, right? They have like a coiler already, so it's like, oh well, if it's like, all right, I'm gonna pop it, it could be like 18 damage. Oh god, does it go right? And you're just like, why? I just took 12 extra damage for no reason. It's like,
this happened earlier where I was the villain in that case, where I had a dinosaur build with coiler and I dealt 30 to someone that had 28 health. And they killed most of my actual units. It's just that the coiler popped and just destroyed him. And that was a great point where I said, they're like, guys, why do tokens deal damage?
Thank you.
Why do tokens deal damage? Like, I dealt 30 damage to this person with 28 health, and they killed most of my actual units. Almost everything that was alive was reborn or death rattle or something. Anyway, like we've talked about that topic.
Gas Carla Reborn, and they killed the don't.
Yeah, but like Dinosaur with Reborn, right? Like you kill the first half, but the second half is still dealing 6 to you. Yeah. Doesn't matter that you kill the first half. All right, let's go Blanchy, because we're gonna talk. We're gonna keep talking.
So Blanchy, I personally don't think this solves anything for Blanchy, right? Like the one, like it's not the Blanchy itself that got nerfed. It's maybe the pieces around it. But you can still play Blanchy scaling like Theos or Brand Buffet or whatever. So I still think this card is strong.
I think you treat this card sort of like a Myrmidon, the 3/3 knockout. It's like you play that card if you have the Uther, if you have the setup for it. The gem transfer to Uther, to whatever you're going to do to make it big. It's not like you're going to put it on your board unless you're like tripled into it in your Reno or whatever, and or whatever, All Hero Power it. But most of the time, you buy that card when you have the setup for it, and it's the same with Blanchy. The one thing I will say is that it just makes it more punishing to buy it early, so it is gonna affect the win rate of the card. But when someone would make it problematic by, say, for instance, Theodore, and you have two Blanchies, that's insanely good,
Right.
especially if you have a glow scale as well, because the
Right.
thing actually reborns with Divine
It's
Shield.
so sick.
That changes nothing, right? Like you don't care, like, oh, they're 25-25 Blanchie could have been a 26-26 Blanchie. It's like that doesn't matter. So yeah, I agree. It's not really it's gonna lower the win rate of the card a bit,
Right.
but it's not really gonna affect what the card actually
Yeah,
does.
people who are using this card well don't care about this change, and the people that are using this card well, I don't want to fight you. Like, stop.
It's true.
Leave me alone. Like, it's crazy.
We got like a 90 health Divine Shield Reborn Blanchie. Those are the games.
But yeah, definitely a strong card. I would keep my eyes on this one in particular and see how people use it. Like, your stats might be weird, but I would just keep an eye on the card itself. I mean, same thing with like Cyborg Drake and whatnot. Toxfin. So Toxfin is going down from tier 6 all the way down to tier 5. That's crazy. It definitely didn't belong on 6, I feel. I don't know. I didn't like it. Obviously it changed the meta and maybe that was fun, but like hitting a Toxfin on 6, just it never went away that I was not happy. Like, I never went away. I was like, I still don't like this. I'm not even playing Toxfin anymore in undead meta, so it's just useless. I really wasn't a big fan of it, so I'm more okay with it on tier 5. Definitely feels more manageable that I can make more poisons. I don't know if this is a solution, but it's currently what we have, and I don't like the things I don't play. I don't know if I picked this since Undeads have dropped, right? So I can't tell you like how good or bad it is. Like, I just haven't touched the card since Undeads happened, so I have no idea.
But this card is a similar story to the Cyborg Drake, where it just wasn't the meta for Toxfin. It wasn't the meta for Cyborg Drake. So I liked the tier 6 Toxfin in the last few weeks of the quest meta, or last few days. I don't know how long Toxfin was on 6. But that doesn't say much about this meta, of course, because that was just such a big difference. Overall, I don't mind this, because in general, having poison, especially with Honcho not being a card anymore, it's harder to just cheese very high health Murlocs.
You know where I put the Toxfin on? Magma Lock, and I'm just like, what's the point?
What's the point of this? Yeah, I know, right? It's like, well, I guess I'm playing a card.
Yeah.
+2/+2.
Yeah. I mean, I played Primal Fin, I hit the Toxfin, I'm like,
Yeah,
I
exactly.
guess so. Like, yeah, it just like feels so pointless. That's what happens to me. That's my experience of Toxfin so far. But other than that, I don't really know.
Yeah, no, it's. I think for the most part it's good, because it just makes poison more accessible, which means, especially if you're going to have a tier 4 Master of Realities, you gotta you gotta equip the people with some poison, because that shit's really dumb, right? Master of Realities just gets bigger than normal units. So if you can't use poison or Leo or whatever to counter that, then yeah, that's gonna make it pretty crazy. The other thing is that now that they have 5 types in, 5 types out, right? That's like half the games no Murlocs once Undead get rotate normally, right? Like 5 in, 5 out. So before it was just like, oh, it's a no Murloc game. Whereas now you have 5 in, 5 out. It's like, well, half the games are no Murloc games.
Yeah, there is that one Crowbar Naga that's a poison, but it requires setup, right? And it's not easy.
And it's a specific card. It's not like you can use it to poison your other Quillbore, right?
I would like the that card to have the what's the permanent, if it's golden, that the 2-drop Quillbore has. I would like that effect on it as well.
Wait, what do you mean?
So the 2-drop 5/3, right? If you put a gem on it, it doesn't get removed at the end of the turn, and it just becomes a permanent Divine Shield unit. Right? I would like that effect on the Puffer Quill, where if it's golden, then you could.
It has that, right?
Does it? I've
Yeah,
never goldened
I
it.
see you play. I see you play with this card all the time,
I've
Collins.
never goldened it. Okay, you're
It's
right.
even, it's on the text right there. It's fine. We'll post production.
It's
We'll cut that
actually
out.
there.
Don't worry.
You're right.
It's
It's actually there. Oh my god. I've I've never golden this card.
the main reason I know that is I play with Greta quite a lot, right?
Okay.
So I just but the funny thing with Greta is you throw the gun on it and then it's not poisoned yet because it's like it became the golden version.
Right.
So you got to throw the gun on it and then a gem or something, and then it's fine.
Huh.
Yeah.
I've played with this card a decent amount. I've never noticed that. Okay, that's my bad. My bad, chat. I ignore me, please. Fair enough. Moving on. Grease Bud. After a friendly minion loses Divine Shield, instead of +2/+2 permanently, it's getting +3/+2 permanently. So this kind of change makes me sad, honestly, because I feel like you're not doing anything really. Like
I thought you were going to say it makes me sad because someone might play a mackerel.
So well, that's fair, but I just don't think you're doing anything. I think either you wanted to nerf it, like make it 2/2/1, and then give it back to Divine Shield, or you would lower its Tavern tier and not make it a 6-drop anymore, because it definitely doesn't feel like a 6-drop really when you play it. And the reason why it used to be good was that it had consistency when you played it. It would scale itself, and it wouldn't get one shot or sniped immediately, and you'd lose the game off of that. So just feels like it's bad, but then you don't want to like make it good. You just want to like pretend that you're fixing it. So it's a little sad.
Well, it was a big problem when it had Divine Shield.
Yeah,
right?
I agree. So
scared of that, right? They got to be like, well, we can't give it shield again because it was really dumb. And it was, right? I remember, I think we played the Twitch Rivals on that patch, right? I think that was the Grease Bud patch, which, funny enough, in the tournament, it was actually not that good because everyone was so good.
Playing,
yeah. But ladder was essentially get a Grease Bud win the game. So that was so dumb. So I don't mind them being cautious with this. And honestly, this feels a little bit like that Ripsnall buff, that Vanessa buff. Like, hey, we're just going to increase these numbers until you play with it.
What number would be enough?
Exactly. Right? There is a breakpoint where you start playing Grease Bud again. And, we'll see what 3-2 looks like.
+4, +3?
Well, we talked, I think 4-3. That's kind of dumb, though, right? Imagine
3-3?
A macro getting 4-3 every time it gets hit. It's
3-3
already
maybe
3-2 is already really dumb on a mackerel. It's just that you need to set up for it now. So,
yeah, I mean mackerel is a dumb card in itself, right? Like I would say, like it's not the Grease Bot's problem; it's a macro problem. That card needs to be removed, is what I would say. But
yeah. I think if macro weren't a thing, then suddenly you can start to think about maybe a Divine Shield Grease Bot. That's not
remove Necro. I'm down for that petition. The card's still stupid. But yeah, definitely this iteration I don't think is enough to make people play it.
Yeah, it shouldn't matter. We'll see what happens, but it shouldn't matter.
I want Divine Shield back and +2/+1, maybe +1/+1. Be super safe. +1/+1.
Yeah. Start out real slow, right?
Because it's not seeing play, so maybe with that it might see some play, and then like if it's too bad, then 2/+1, and then if that's too bad, then I'm not buffing it after that. Like I'm just 2/+1, I'm done. I'm not giving it any more.
I mean, I'll probably try it out. Like, who knows? Maybe 3-2 just pushes it over the edge.
Yeah, we'll see. Good luck. I'm not doing that.
You're not touching it.
Yeah. Okay, so Fell Stomper, they're buffing this card, so it's going from 7 health to 8 health. Oh wait, no, I forgot to read the whole thing. After you summon a minion in combat, give it 3 attack. It's changing to after you summon a minion in combat, give it 2 attack. So you are losing 7 attack, 6 attack every time. But yeah, I still think this card is pretty solid, still good. What I used to think about it, like every time you summon a minion in combat, it's like all of your minions get a juggler proc, right? Like that's how I would think about it. Like that's kind of insane. Yeah, it's not the same, right? But like
like that's one. Shields, they don't snipe low HP, but It's more like Ground Shaker, right? Right now, it's just every time you summon, it's a Ground Shaker proc.
Mm.
That's a lot of Ground Shaker procs.
That is a lot of ground shaker procs, and you could win comps with this before, like just running like Golden Fell Stomper. I don't know afterwards if that's as consistent or as common. But I definitely know before you could, with +3 attack, you could win comps with this, especially with all.
You mean you win a lobby?
Win a lobby,
just,
yeah.
No, I won lobbies myself playing Fell Stomper. It's like when the undead guy didn't get a high roll, right? It's like, okay, I can take him.
When Putricide was 8th, you're like,
yeah. That is that's true. Have you played some Putricide since the patch or not?
Yeah, I have.
Did it go well?
There's still too many stupid options. I would say, like you still need to get to 6, right? Like that's hasn't changed. Like if you do, like the options are still very dumb. Like it's obviously not absorb every death rattle dumb, but it's still like Reborn, Divine Shield. Like when the Reborn also you hit Divine Shield Reborn, it's like why does it come out 17 attack Divine Shield Reborn? Like what is like why is that okay? And then it's always a 6-drop. So I even if they barely beat me, I'm taking 12 every time. So it's like I can't I can't lose a fight.
The amount of times that a Putricide dealt like 24 to me because it's like 6-drop face.
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah, my Putricide games were also good. I mean, we'll talk about it with the last minion, I guess. But I guess the conclusion for Fell Stomper is that it was really insane before, and now it's probably just strong. Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's not as problematic as Ghoul. I think just because Ghoul hits so early, and it's so determining who is going to do well and who doesn't. Because by the time people have Fell Stomper, you've had a little time to build your own comp. With Ghoul, you don't have time to build anything that can build a Ghoul, anything that can beat a Ghoul. So
it's funny, right? Ghoul can be just as strong as this card. Legitimately.
It's different, but yeah.
Like theoretically, I could play a Fell Stomper, I could play a Ghoul, and then they do the exact same thing. No?
How many different types can you have on your board at the same time?
Well, you can have dual types, right? So you could probably hit everything.
Yeah, but then those dual types aren't going to be all token things, though, right?
No, I'm not saying they're gonna like. I'm not saying it's optimal, but I'm saying like theoretically, if I just have dual type minions, I could play a Fell Stomper, I could play a Ghoul, and they do the exact same thing. And one's a tier 3, one's a tier 6. Obviously, Fell Stomper like is more like can. Obviously, it's better. Like what? Obviously, it's better. But I'm saying they can do the same. They can do the same scaling. And one's tier 3 tiers lower. It's crazy to me.
You're essentially saying, like, if I create a shit board for both of these engines, they do the exact same thing. It's like,
but I'm not okay with that. I'm not okay with that.
You can make that argument for a lot of different cards. Like, let me just make a shitty enough board, and then both of these cards do exactly the same thing. But I hear you. Yes, obviously.
Iron Sensei and Greasebot do the same thing. And one's tier...
Let's move on.
All right, that one. You got me on that one. All right. Moving on. Fell Stomper is decent. Sister Deathwing. It's a 4 attack, 11 health. Whenever a friendly minion is reborn, it used to give your undeads one attack, 3 health. Now it lost 2 attack, but also whenever a friendly minion is reborn, you give your undeads +1, +2 permanently. So that I would say that's a pretty significant nerf where you're going from +1, +3, which is like kind of insane, to +1, +2, which is a little bit more manageable. You kind of have to build the comp around this for this to be good, where sometimes you just need like 2 reborns and you're like already happy. Here you kind of need to like make sure a lot of your units are undead and reborn so that you can take advantage of this. So definitely makes sense.
When I talked about this card, it was a bit weird because the meta was so fast that I don't think this card was actually that good in the previous meta. Just because how strong Anubarak was at building So essentially, this is how my undead games went, right? I get a new Barak and I scale up, and then I play Sister for 1 turn to get my summoners out of blaster range, and then I sell the Sister because it's not a reborn, and you just don't have that incentive to keep it on your board if your tokens are dealing 40 or 50 damage.
Well, this is my games. I would triple into a Sister, and I'd fill my board with reborn, and I'd kill everyone and lose to Putricide at the end.
That makes sense.
And I'd get second. So that's my experience. You just get it, and then you're like, I can't beat everyone. Oh wait, the Putricide killed me every time. Okay.
So the issue I had is that you create these like very high health minions, and then either it's like the Putricide with very high damage who doesn't give a shit, or it's like a Millhouse with a 300 Magma Lock one-shotting your 120
Yeah, that would
health
be
minion.
I would also lose to Naga players. That would be the
Yeah.
other exception where
People with like good stats, right? Yeah, just walk over you. So, but I think in this meta, it's even though it got nerfed, it might have gotten better in terms of
Overall.
the pace. Yeah, the pace of the game, because the slower the game becomes, the more you actually appreciate that scaling.
Yeah,
And
it didn't get nerfed in half like a Nubarak did, so it was kind of good, right? Like if you
compared
think
to a Nubarak, it's faster now.
yeah.
So that's funny. So, but yeah, anyways, yeah, might be a bit better of a meta for Sister Death Whisper. I didn't play a lot with it other than just buff my tokens out of range, but I do think in various MMR ranges, the cards saw different levels of
Let
play.
me tell you, you get a Sister, you roll double Blanchy. Let me tell you, Shady, that's the stuff.
Yeah,
that's the stuff right there.
That didn't do anything in the previous meta. That's the problem.
It did. Honestly, my Blanchies had like 100 something health, man. Like I was taking like 7 shots of like it was. I still lose to Putricide, but everyone else I beat. I agree.
Okay.
Like Putricide still with me.
You have a good enough setup for it, yes, of course. Like double Sister early, double Blanche, of course. That's gonna be amazing.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Anyways, probably going to get better in terms of just having a Sister comp, right? With the total damage of a Nubarak scaled down, it should be more interesting to have this on your board. I'll put it that way.
Feels good. And then we have the last change, and obviously the least important change, the Eternal Summoner change. Obviously, they put cards by importance. Have you never noticed this? Always at the top is the most important card. So
the Thornquill guy getting extra health.
Yeah, so Thorn Captain, most important change here, and then it just goes down and like, what's the next important? Like Eternal Night, I do agree, it's very important, and Ghoul of the Feast, I do agree, very important, right? But they had to make
they're close.
They had to make Thorncaller front and center. This is the change you're thinking about every time you queue it into a game. So yeah, the last least important card, we do have Eternal Summoner. 8 attack. It used to have 8 attack, 1 health, Death Rattle summon 2 Eternal Knights. Now it's 6 attack, 1 health, Reborn. So that's the big change. And Death Rattle summon 1 Eternal Knight. So it went from summoning 2 Eternal Knights to having Reborn implicit in its abilities, but then also you only summon 1 Eternal Knight. So that's this is definitely like the most unique change out of all the changes so far. And definitely, changes the metagame, changes Putricide. We're definitely going to talk about Putricide in its own thing. But overall, I would say this is actually like a buff except for the high roll. Like the high roll, when you have everything set up, it's definitely better to have the Reborn added to it. But if you don't have all that set up and you're running like just 2 Eternal Summoners, initially, what you're getting now is you're getting the Summoner, plus you're getting the extra 6/1, plus you're also getting the Summoner. So you get the you get an extra 6/1 now for free. And then the other issue is like, if you barely lose, or if you lose and you just kill the Summoner, now the Summoner comes back as well as the Knight, so you're dealing 9 or 6, or you're dealing 8. Right, instead of the 4 you would deal. Yeah, so you have that chance to like just kill people if they barely beat you, whereas you didn't get that 8 damage before. So I would say it's a buff, but but the high roll is definitely a nerf, right? Like you can't get the reborn added, and then you get the 2 summon reborn too, and it's like that's too much. So I think it's better to nerf it in this way, but I still think like it's better. Like I think it's better, but like you just don't have the high roll potential. That's my thoughts.
When I played with this,
Mm-hmm.
my main observation was that you rarely got the full value anyway when you added Soul Splitter, and it was the old version where it summoned 2 knights. Because you needed 3 board spaces every time, and I mean, God forbid you triple this thing.
So you taunt 2 things first. This is what would happen.
Yeah, sure, but people always ran the straight shots thing, right? So that's like your taunts are no longer taunts,
Right.
and then let me just cleave you or whatnot. So there was definitely a lot of opportunity to miss out on the value. And today, when I played with it, I got all my value very consistently.
Right.
Just because I even at some point I made a golden one and I actually got all the value from the golden one. I was like, oh my god, that's amazing. And I think that a lot of the time, especially with the Anubarak nerf, you can just run a Titus. And now it's actually conceivable that you're getting Titus value.
Yeah, true.
The old one, you're like, you're not getting Titus value. That's too much. So the added benefit as well is like you can say scale it back to 1 Soul Splitter and 1 Anubarak, and then just run 2 of these and run 2 of the Sun guys, right? The 6/6 Divine Shield. And that's quite clean. So from what I saw today,
it's a buff.
It was definitely a quality of life buff, where you're just like, oh, this just feels better because I'm not so frustrated for my guy dying too early and I'm not getting my value. I agree that the ceiling is lower.
Right.
The potential for just endless summons, right, is lower because you are removing that Soul Splitter option where you have Soul Splitter on the regular one, which would have been 2 and then Reborn, etc. And then the golden one is 4 and then Reborn. But you can run Titus and still get sort of that same effect, value, right, where you're still summoning 2. So overall, I'm a fan. I'm a fan for sure.
Yeah, I think this is a buff, but it feels more okay because of the Nubarak change. Like, so you're not scaling that Anubarak to like because before you would just summon like 50 attack Eternal Knights or like 2 health, and you're like, wait, what? This trajectory is a little off. It's supposed to scale 1 to 1. You're like, where is it getting this extra 40 attack from? But with the Anubarak change, the scaling is slower and the pace is slower. So even though the card feels better, due to the slower attack scaling, it like feels more like, okay, I guess it's fine like it is. So I would say it's a buff, but due to the Anubarak change, it doesn't feel that dominating as it used to be. That's my thoughts.
And felt clean on my future side games.
Feels
like this
better,
was still very, yeah.
So yeah, do you think undeads are dead? What's your thoughts?
I think you're getting an early Anubarak or your future side. I think those are probably the conditions under which you want to play undead. I don't think I want to play sort of just random undead.
Early sister, I'm gonna toss in the early sister. With
sure, but do you like die with that comp? Like, is that?
To be fair, I haven't played it with the nerf. That's actually fair. I don't know. I don't know if it's worse with the nerf. So
because I can see sister on the board early, but then I'd probably want to either add a Nubarak or I'd want to.
Yeah, you want Nubarak, you want Blanchi, you want Soul Splitter, basically. It's the same thing. But speaking of Professor Future Side, they do have a dev comment. If Eternal Summoner is picked as the first pick from Future Side Hero Power, you can no longer be offered a Reborn or a Poisonous Minion as a second option. Well, it already has Reborn, so like, I would actually rather you get a Reborn option, if I'm gonna be honest, because I don't like because what happens is you just get a Divine Shield option. So this thing comes Divine Shield, Reborn,
stealth. Stealth is also
stealth. Yeah. I mean, but the Divine Shield's the one I don't like because it's like it's more power to the card.
It's true. It is, but it is more vulnerable to Sindore. Like the stealth one is just like I'm not getting Sindored. which
Yeah,
is
but I mean, the Sindori goes. I mean, you have to play the Sindori such a weird position, right? Like if you want to like third position if you want to get it valued, and then, a lot of people don't do that, right? They play it first, right? So against most players are not gonna know
you
like,
can
oh,
usually avoid it. That's true.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I still think Future Side's a problem personally. Like would be my thoughts, even with the change. Obviously, the first change like that, those cards shouldn't have made it into the live, in my opinion. Like that's just you messed up. But even as it's now, like the problem is we know how to play it. Like you gotta get 6 drops from the card, right? Like from the hero power, and people kind of understand that, and the people that do that correctly, scale correctly, they get so much power, and the tier 4s are also very good, right? So the tier 4s kind of carry you into the tier 6s. Like the tier 4s can give you the coins. I don't know if coins should be available as a like or
Yeah.
economy. I not coins, but you can get like one.
The necromancer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you can get 1/1 copies that can triple, or you can get dragons, but you have to be on tier 6 for the dragon. But but people are picking that with reborn, right? So like the thing is like the cards that give you economy, you pretty much always get reborn on top of those cards. So it's not like you're getting 1 coin per game.
Definitely not always, but yeah,
Well, a
it's
lot of I mean the future sides that win. One thing I've noticed about
yeah,
all of them is they all get a card with economy and reborn on top of it, and then they play
yeah.
that, and then because of that, it's a lot easier to scale to 6, and then they get 2 broken 6 creations, and then you're just dealing with that, and they don't really have to do much after that. Like, yeah, get a Nubrak, get a Titus or whatever to scale a little bit, but like a lot of the work is done for you after those creations are made, and that's just kind of my issue with the card or the hero, where it's too the potential is too high rolly and easy to execute. Right, it's not like you have to think hard to level to 6 and press the button twice. Like, it's like, I don't know. That's not the hardest way of playing the game, and you can just like auto win, like from that point if you get the right hits. You can just like kind of like I'm top 2 guaranteed like mentality, and it's pretty accurate. So still don't like the hero. Is my thoughts on it. Any more?
I'm not sure. So I went through this period where I didn't want to pick future sides when
I do
like
skip the hero. I will say you get 8th with this hero too, right? Because like if
yeah,
you don't hit the economy, well, you're
yeah.
dead. So I will say I skip the hero. Like I'm not saying like I always pick it and I think
Okay.
it's broken. Like I skip the hero too, but like the
But the
my
ones that make it
opponents,
through,
my
the ones that
opponents,
make
I
it,
tell you, they always get everything
they
unless they're 8th.
never miss the coin, and they always get the summon. Yeah.
It
Okay, I
it's
hear
too
you.
swingy, I guess, is maybe the
It's a
problem.
very yeah. No, I guess the word that I would use is sort of the inevitability,
Mm.
where you see that he's alive and you're like, oh, that's bad.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
gonna be
Yeah.
bad. It's
Yeah.
gonna be real
If Future Side is top 4, I've already playing for second. Like I'm just like,
yeah, you just know the moment you face that board, like that's gonna be bad because he's alive. Because that means he hits some really good shit.
oh, he hit for 37. I think I could beat that. Like, like it's not happening. So
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I had 2 future side wins today,
Hmm.
and they were both copies of each other. Where
Hmm.
I kind of like doing Jeef curve now,
Hmm.
and then on 7 gold, I'm
Hmm.
on tier 3, and then I just make a 3, and I look for the gargoyle
The
coin,
Gargoyle coin. Yeah.
and I hit it twice. I was just like, okay, well, it's kind of over because like one game I hit the reborn, the other I didn't. But a lot of the time with the reborn, you don't even get both of them because you're kind of
Right.
strong.
Because you're too strong. Yeah.
So, but even if you get only a few coins on the way up, it just that money is the difference between being able to go 6, press button,
Mm.
and not do that,
Right.
or
Right.
having to sell half your board. Right? You
Right.
can
Yeah.
always go 6, press button, but it costs you half your board.
Dude, I've done
So,
that where I went to 6, sold like 3 cards, pressed the button. I'm like, well, I won. Like,
I'm stronger. I'm stronger now.
I sold 3 cards, and I'm just like, yep, that's better than what I had before. It's crazy to me. I feel you.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. No, I guess our consensus is that the high roll is a bit too much for future side. We'll have to see, what's happening with the win rate. If it's overall good, I guess that's sort of a justification for a nerf. If it's overall like whatever, I think they might just look at it and say like, oh, well, this looks pretty good. Because obviously all those top eights, they drag the average down.
Drag the average down.
Yeah. But yeah, what can you do?
You can complain. You can complain on a podcast until they see it and change.
Complained a lot about HSBG Collins. I complained a whole lot.
You have, but you haven't continued. Yeah, don't tell
I
me.
have to continue my crusade against HSBG. All right. Well, I mean, today it was the same shit where it's like, oh, it's turn 5. I'm fighting Lich minus whatever 12 or so. Yeah. So yeah, there's just heroes in the game that do have that feel bad aura to it. And with Putricide, it's more like, oh, he's alive in the late game. I probably can't win because they just have this bullshit.
Yeah.
Where like even today, my Eternal Knights were up to 40 damage, like with no Nubrak. So they actually had like
39 health as well.
Yeah, they had a crap ton of health. Yeah. They had a crap ton of health. Yeah. So you just like you're kind of just summoning 40/40s at the end.
Yeah.
Stupid, right? Like summoning 40.
It is so dumb, yeah.
Because you can very easily have 3 or 4 summoners on your board when you play Putricide.
I didn't know you were a Jade Golem enjoyer, Shady. Okay, I like that. I respect that.
Jade Golem, wow, that's been a while. Yep, just playing Jade.
That's what you should think about every time.
Is that it, Collins, or do we have anything else on the program for today?
I think that is it for today for sure. So definitely interesting series of changes. I think overall a good direction. Obviously, there's a couple ones that we've talked about that are a little like iffy in terms of how it's gonna feel at the end of the day, but overall, like the direction is correct, right? Undeads are less powerful. Newberg change was pretty healthy, and things like that. Feast maybe not good enough, but overall, like I think it's a step. I still think Eternal Knight should be a tier 3 card, but whatever. It's like it. It's fine. It's not fine, but it's fine. I'm not that salty anymore. But yeah. Other than that, right, I do have an ending thing that I'm supposed to do, and thank you guys for joining us today. Hope you guys enjoyed it. You can send us feedback at hsbgpodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitch and Twitter, Educatedcollins, Shady Bunny Live, and hope you guys enjoyed the review of the podcast, and we'll see you on the next one.
See you guys.